Mark Kinner is a true servant leader, quietly impacting the halls of state government to the trails beneath our feet. As a founding board member of the Sheridan Community Foundation and the Sheridan Community Land Trust, Mark has helped preserve the beauty of our region and invest in its future. He served with distinction in the Wyoming House of Representatives, representing House District 29 for nearly 8 years. His commitment to education was evident in his leadership on the Sheridan College Board. Mark continues his legacy of service as a deacon at Holy Trinity Church and serves as a faith coach at Volunteers of America. Whether through policy, preservation, philanthropy, or prayer, Mark's work reflects a deep love for this community and a vision for its tomorrow.
So actually, maybe not everyone knows, but I actually grew up in Connecticut. I worked on a dairy farm, I milked cows. That really actually played a role in getting to Wyoming, because I watched as our farms were being developed into subdivisions, and that really bothered me. My dad was ordained in 1956, and his ministry actually has played a large part of my life. That faith journey with my dad, I guess you could almost say, led us to Wyoming. My dad worked with a Lakota Sioux priest in South Dakota and helped with a boys camp for underserved boys. And we would spend summers in South Dakota on this boys camp. After spending time in South Dakota, our parents took us to many of the national parks in the West as kind of a treat for us, while falling in love with the Rocky Mountains and so on. And so upon graduation from high school, when it was time to pick a college, I applied for schools along the Rocky Mountain Range, and guess what? The very first college that I heard from was the University of Wyoming. Fast forward, so I graduated from the University of Wyoming, and I moved to Casper, and I took a job in a bank as an officer trainee. Guess what? On my very first day of officer trainee, I met a teller by the name of Tibby. So banking was really good to us in many, many ways. And so Tibby and I have two children, Coulter and Carly. And they're both wonderful kids. I also wrote a letter to the county commissioners and city council when they were advertising for people interested in starting a land trust here in Sheridan. That really appealed to me. I mentioned, the farm ground being gobbled up by subdivisions in Connecticut and all that, and applied to do that, and was one of the 5 folks that were selected to start the process of establishing a land trust here in Sheridan, and served on that for 9 years. Really proud of what the land trust has accomplished here for quality of life and for recreation and so on, and their mission, the land trust mission of providing open space and space for wildlife and trails and preserving history and all that just so resonated with me. And several of us from the land trust walked up on Soldier Ridge with Donnie Roberts, and we posed the idea of, what about a trail up here, a public trail on private land? How crazy is that? Well, he thought about it, and he thought, yeah, I want to do that. I want to give back to the community. When we were starting the land trust, I just knew it would be positive. But in those early days, we were hoping that we could get like 25 people that could make a donation to the land trust. And I think when they had their one of their open houses out at their new property out at Bridges, I think there might have been 600 people there. And that was beyond our wildest imaginations.
He's always quick to share, and we worked together for a lot of years, so I heard it plenty of times. But he also always talks about, someday we're sitting up there on Cloud Peak, and I like to think that we look down and, largely things are unchanged.
If you crawl up on the top of Cloud Peak, and actually You know what, I had to do that because if I was going to use that as an example, I had to say that yes, I have been on top of Cloud Peak. But if you crawl up there and you look at this valley, you know, is it growing in a positive way, and is it doing neat things, and is it way better than it was? You know, when I see kids and parents, and they might be biking, they might be walking, they might be riding a horse on Soldier Ridge, but I just think, yeah, that's why we did that. And so in 2005, I did go through the Leadership Wyoming program. I told my class that someday I would serve the state by serving in the legislature. I just didn't know when. So it was 10 years later before I really got to do that, to serve the state.
Mark was always thinking about public service. I really encouraged it because I look at Mark as someone who is very honest and ethical, and he's very steady. So when the opportunity came up, because we lost our good friend John Patton, and Mark had a chance to run for filling that position, I encouraged him.
I threw my name in the hat for the seat that John Patton once held in the Wyoming legislature. I did that and was appointed by the county commissioners to serve the rest of John Patton's term after his passing, and then went on to run for re-election 3 other times, so served a total of almost 8 years. Serving on the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation and working with others there, especially Jay, we looked at each other over time and said, are you going to have a foundation with your name on it? No. Are you? No. Hey, but what if we combined forces and started a community foundation that everyone could be a part of?
Well, Mark and I have become good friends because of the projects that we've worked on. And we've taken on a couple projects, one recently, the Sheridan Community Foundation, that I think we'll work on together for the rest of our lives. It's just a wonderful project. We're finding great success in it. We're confident that we're going to be able to support the nonprofit community even more than we have in the past.
When you look at our mission statement for the Sheridan Community Foundation, it is to encourage charitable giving, and then also philanthropic education. We'd like to share with others the impact that they can also make by leaving a little bit somewhere. I'm following in my dad's footsteps. As I mentioned, he was ordained a priest in 1956, and so I studied under my father for several years to become a deacon, and then continued that after his death. And in September of 2023, I was actually ordained a deacon in the Anglican Church in America. But I was desirous of being a faith coach for people going through drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And so I've been doing that. I've been serving mostly Native Americans. But you know what, darn it, at the end of the day, after I meet with some of these men that are really working on really hard things, when I leave, I find out I'm one of the beneficiaries, and that's not why I do it, right? But you do, when you help others, you end up also having a little side benefit. At the end of the day, aren't we all trustees for where we live? I think we are. And the last part of the definition of being a trustee, it's about enhancing conditions for those you will never know and for a time you will never see. That's motivating to me. One of the things that Homer Scott believed was that if you help build your community, the bank will benefit. Not the other way around. Not build the bank and the community will benefit, but the other way around. One of the things that, quite honestly, that I would mention that I was most proud of was that the bank employees served on various boards and commissions and so on. And actually at the time, we added it up and it was 75. Together, think of the combined impact of all of that. And so I think that might be the thing that I'd be most proud of, is so many people working for the betterment of our community, but also for the benefit of others.
His spirituality, his belief in God is so important, and it's number one in his life. And the second part of that is his family and then his community. And Mark instills that in us, and he doesn't do that by really preaching to us. He does it by living.
But my experience with Mark and seeing him active in the community here is, if there was an opportunity to step forward and help meet a community need, he would want to be one of the first at the table.
Mark is the kind of person that the light shining on him, I don't think, is always comfortable. He would rather have the light shining from him. And I think that's going to be a legacy that he'll leave, is an example to people about how to make the Sheridan a great place to live without seeking recognition or reward, but simply doing the good work.
How I'd like to be remembered as someone crawling up on the top of Cloud Peak and looking at this valley and looking at it 50 years from now and saying, who were those people? That's the only recognition that I need.